Getting the early numbers could be the key to success when betting on the NFL. That's why we're here to react to the Pinnacle openers and analyse where the market might move. Welcome to the opening line. Well, we're on to week 6 of the NFL. Odds are live at Pinnacle. Time to take a look at the numbers and assess where the market might move in the week ahead. On hand to share their insight is Andy Molitor, Eric Eager, and Rufus Peabody. Plenty of talking points from week 5, everyone. Bit of a weird one. Obviously dominated by Dak Prescott's injury as well. All things considered, I'll go to you, Rufus. How did the week go for you?
Not good. I bet on the Jets and Saints again. So it was a very low volume week for me, but and then I ended up getting middled on the Saints yesterday because I took Chargers +7, +110 second half. And I actually ended up getting some like +330 second half money line, and then some Chargers to win like at -138, no, -150. I don't know, but yeah, didn't work out. Didn't work out well for me there. It's been a tough start to the season for me so far. At least I actually was up, if only slightly, in college football this week. So that's the silver lining.
And did you get onto your totals yet? Are we still waiting for those?
I ran it last week. I didn't. My numbers seemed a little bit, they didn't seem extreme enough. So actually, I didn't actually play anything. I just felt like, they didn't feel right. Like I need to go back through the code. But I actually did. I bet college football totals for the first week of the year, which went 2-0. So that was nice. But I actually still have code running right now for totals, just in the background of my computer. So maybe halfway through we'll get it.
Unders in college football had a terrible noon hour, and then were pretty decent after about 3:00 for a change. But
I actually had 2 overs, believe it or not. I had the Notre Dame game over, which went over in the first half, and there was another game. It was another early one. It was Syracuse Duke.
Okay, that was a low one, and there was defensive touchdowns, right? That one got.
Well, there was like 2 touchdowns in the first 3 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Duke,
which is always nice.
There's a bunch of turnovers. Duke turned it over a ton.
Yeah. Those teams are a mess.
I'm strictly betting college off informational stuff. I think 90% of my college bets have just been COVID stuff. So I just I got some earlier news than maybe some of the market on Vanderbilt. Just faded the piss out of them. So South Carolina Gamecocks, not that good of a team, but they beat the snot out of the walk-ons from Vanderbilt, who aren't even playing this week because it's gotten worse. Again, I'm trying to think what state Vanderbilt's in.
Tennessee. So
weird.
Yeah. That's a good question for today's game, right? Like, how much are you guys adjusting, if at all, the Tennessee Buffalo game based upon what? Because Titans get back Luwan and Brown, but there's a ton of players that right now are on their COVID list. And I think the number sort of reflects that, but what do you got? Because I would, if the two teams were equally strength, I'd almost have Tennessee favored, but right now, I don't think I could advise that because it's we have no idea, the cluster injuries, COVID situation that's on Tennessee side.
Yeah. It'd be like a pick 'em at home for me. If this was normal, it should be, the number's too big, but again, they lose a bunch of depth. You don't know it's been a roller coaster ride because Juan we didn't know, and then AJ Brown suddenly is playing.
They didn't practice legally,
right?
And then no practice forever.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? I feel like with the total, we're seeing money come in on the under right now, which I think makes sense, except for the fact that the Titans are a bad defense that is probably going to get worse, and then haven't practiced or haven't tackled anybody in 14, 15 days. Does that mean, and then Buffalo's been, a juggernaut offensively that's been able to practice for 2 weeks. What happens there? So
in that, if you do run into that game script where Buffalo is out to an early lead, I think even with some of the injuries that Tennessee suffered on the offense with Lawan back and AJ Brown and Jonnu, they can go score points. So I'd be terrified to bet this under. Yeah. I know a bunch of people that got some Buffalo -3. That was a good grab that moved off that. I don't have a big interest in betting Tuesday night. I'm just too many bad memories of Webb versus Vic.
Well, outside of this game as well, then COVID list is kind of like a completely new concept. How do you guys approach that in terms of betting? Is it kind of like a daily check-in or just an update in terms of news? What's the approach to kind of build that into your process?
Well, I mean, my approach isn't super scientific. I just try to, like for example, this Buffalo Tennessee game, I try to weigh how much I think it's going to affect it, but I really don't have much of an idea. Like this game, I actually did bet. I took Tennessee plus 3.5 yesterday. Just, I talked with some other people, I talked with Preston, who basically had the number right where close to where I did. I make it Tennessee minus 0.8 of a point, and that's not giving them any bye week credit. So I was like, okay, first off, I'm not going to give them credit for the bye week, and then I still show like a freaking 4.5 point difference. So it's more just like, does it seem reasonable? And like to me, like a 4.5 point difference there, like especially crossing like the 3 doesn't really seem reasonable to me. I'm probably going to be wrong, but we'll see.
I totally agree with you, Rufus. I was on, I can't remember what show I was on, but it was before the number got hung up there, and they're like, well, where do you think it's going to be? And I think they're going to put it at 3.5 and dare people to bet on Tennessee. And I think I'll do it, because it is too off market. Tennessee is like, they have, we talk about the correlations that they have with COVID, but they have like good correlations too. Their offensive coordinator is terrific. Their quarterback in this system plays extremely well. And I think they're better than the sum of the parts. So, I like I said, I'm with you. I think I make Tennessee a favorite in the best circumstances. And so if that team's getting more than a field goal, that represents a ton of value, even given all these circumstances.
All right. Well,
these bye weeks have gotten weird, especially like I feel honestly, people were like saying, what a tough spot Buffalo's getting put in with all these switching around, but Denver might have got the worst of everything. Like they get their bye week, but they practiced all week.
Yeah.
When you take a bye week, you don't practice all week going into the bye. Like those players have to be that's got to be demoralizing to do that. Like you get a surprise bye to begin with, but to practice all week for a game and then it's like, no, this is your bye week. Yeah. You don't really get to do anything though.
On the other hand, though, they get their quarth probably back.
Silver lining there.
Yeah. I mean, the funniest thing is Belichick basically saying, look, like we don't get Newton this week. I'm not gonna put my players through this, and so pushes it back an entire week to possibly get Newton. And
they both might get. Why did it get pushed
back? Like, what was the impetus for that? Was that like scheduling for other games or something, or was it like just because Newton's positive?
Newton and Gilmore were positive,
right,
and then there was another like assistant coach or practice squad player that was positive, and then Belichick basically said, "Look, we're not coming in." Like he kind of unilaterally, did that, and then there were rumblings out of New England that like the PA and the NFL didn't care about the players, and then so the NFL was like proactive and shut the whole thing down, before anything could be, any scuttlebutt could, additionally occur, I guess.
Whereas you see these college teams with like 20 plus guys testing positive for COVID playing on a weekly basis. So
just let it rain.
Yes,
let it
the
ride.
SEC is a little different.
Yeah. Not to kind of go off too much on a tangent, when you're talking about these players and the big name players as well getting COVID and testing positive, like how far do you see this going? Is it in danger of the more games that get postponed and moved around and the difficulties with scheduling, that could you potentially see the season getting put to a halt again, or is it just going to power through?
Week 18.
I think the optimistic way to look at it is to say that the league did a really good job during training camp. And then once I was talking, one of my friends is an assistant coach for the Rams, and he said, he's like, during the day, I have no issues with the players, but it's when they have their off day. That's like really, and during a season, these players have like one full off day. They have, other days where it's relatively light on them in the facility. And I think that a decent number of the teams got complacent with the protocols. And, I think it's somewhat encouraging that like the one team that had the huge outbreak was a team that very clearly didn't follow a lot of the protocols. And so, when that's the case, like, I think that that's like, if they sort of wake up to these things, maybe it could be like baseball where things sort of move on, sort of in a positive way later on.
All right, well, I'll get us back to the games. We've got next one on the list for me, Chicago Bears at the Carolina Panthers. Carolina were posted at -3. They're down to -2.5. Fairly modest total of 44. I mean, the Bears are 4-1. Big thanks to Tom Brady not being able to count, I guess. But who wants to kick us off for this one? Anyone interested here?
Yeah, I took the Bears +3 -120 yesterday. Yesterday late morning Eastern time, I guess. I just, if I made a line just based on what's happened this year without a prior, I like kicked something out yesterday. I was kind of like, I'm curious what my numbers would be if I wasn't looking like at a prior, just because I was like, well, how much would I actually like the Jets and Saints in that case? But, I'd make the line Carolina -2.8 just based on this season stuff alone. And that is regressing to the mean based on only having, 5 weeks. How many? I don't even know what we're in week 6. Yeah, I guess 5 weeks of data. But I make the line with Foles in is Chicago -0.5 point here. I just, Carolina's overperformed, and you kind of expect they're going to get a little bit better too as guys get more familiar with the system. Just because you've had such roster turnover and turnover in the coaching staff, but I still think it's a bit of an overreaction due to. Well, I think they've overperformed a little bit. We know who Teddy Bridgewater is, or at least I think we do. I mean, maybe the best quarterback in his division. Who knows at this point? But
wow,
I just thought.
He got Quinn fired.
Yeah, I think +3 is just too much.
I'd probably agree with that. The Bears that was a bad game Thursday. Like that was a bad game. The Bears had 4 yards per play and won the game. I don't think they did they get to 300 total yards? I'm going to have to pull that up. It was a bad game, a terrible second half. I fell asleep. Foles and Brady both played not great. But the Bears get some extra rest here. I think this number is probably a little bit of an overreaction to the way Carolina's played as well. DVOA it's still early in the season, so it's not, fully up to snuff where it should be. But if you look at that right now, the 3 past defenses they played have not been great for Carolina. I think it's 25th, and then another one in the high teens. The Bears are actually grading out well on defense. They're trending in the right way on injuries on that side. I think the Bears defense can probably put a halt to whatever this Teddy Bridgewater, Mike Davis show is. Although it is great to see the running backs don't matter, people, because he's been great. They haven't really missed a beat. McCaffrey, you lose a receiver and a running back, but at the same time they've still been great. I'm scrambling with this number because I had Carolina so low on it was the big lack of continuity thing preseason. New coaching staff, new quarterback, lose the middle linebacker, a lot of things, continuity issues. So I had to make them low, and scrambling to get this number right on them has been tricky for me. That said, I think it's shot up a little too fast. I'd lean Bears here.
Well, in Carolina, sorry, I had a point I wanted to add before, but that I didn't have the right screen up. But Carolina's also been really lucky in the turnover. In turnovers, I mean, they're +14 points due to turnovers and expected points added, whereas the Bears are -4.5. So I mean, another thing in favor of the Bears.
Yeah, Carolina had that one game against the Chargers where they forced a number of turnovers. Probably should have lost the game. Ended up winning outright. The interesting thing about that passing offense is about over 50% of the design first read throws by quarterbacks over the last 2 years were to Christian McCaffrey. Now that he's out, it's about a third to Mike Davis. So they're intentionally throwing the ball to wide receivers, which is more valuable on a play-for-play basis. Chicago has been really good, though. I mean, their linebackers have been terrific, and their cornerbacks, Jalen Johnson, the second-round pick out of Utah, has been wonderful as well. So this might be the toughest defense that they have to face, and will feel, I think, a lot harder than an Atlanta defense, which can't stop anybody.
And is Teddy Bridgewater the best quarterback in his division, Eric?
Well, Jameis is, but he hasn't played yet.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, I mean he's moving the ball he's being accurate. He's throwing, a lot of the low 8-out stuff he had last year with the Saints has gone away. But I will say that a lot of it is the correlation between Joe Brady, who I have as the third best play caller in the NFL, and his accuracy and the receivers that he has. I mean, like 70% of his air yards are going to two guys, and those two guys have been terrific, and Anderson and DJ Moore.
All right, we'll get on to Detroit Lions against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got Detroit -3, taking some early action, but they're not moving yet. And the total 52.5 has bumped up already to 54. Team coming off a bye, team that took a pretty bad beating against the Texans. Early action to kind of read into. Andy, anything from you on this?
Yeah, that's all the nice things you can probably say about Detroit as they're coming off a bye. Yep. Minshew had a nice, this is one where I've set this box score aside to look deeper into it, and I guess it's already Tuesday, so I need to get my ass in gear, but Minshew was I have 31 for 49, 301 yards, 14 points. They didn't have great luck. I'm guessing the red zone stuff wasn't good. 3 straight losses now, giving the other team their very first win. I don't know if somebody's done that. I mean, early in the season, I suppose it happens. But DJ Chark tweaked his ankle. I don't have a great update on that as we're only on Tuesday yet. But Detroit, I am looking at their injury news. I don't think they were a bad defense. They just had a nasty cluster injury immediately. Second half of the very first game, all of a sudden making Mitch into Maserati Mitch. They've suffered that nasty comeback against the Bears. They probably should have won that game. I still think Detroit can be a good team. If they got healthy off the bye, I'm going to probably look at this number. If it's still, what are we sitting at? Pinnacle's at juicy S3 right now. Yeah. That's probably where I'm going to have it. Even Detroit coming off a bye on the road, I'm guessing my numbers are pretty close. Probably no play on this just because of some uncertainty with Detroit.
Yeah, Jacksonville had injuries to the best player on each level of their defense last week against Houston. If they can get those guys back, there might be some resistance there. But Detroit, has a lot of weapons. I support this total. The move, towards the over here. Jacksonville has been a team that can move the football. They self-destructed a bunch with 2 field goals, both missed in the first half, and then whatever the hell that attempted pass by Robinson was in the red zone in the second half. They're a team that can move the ball. Detroit doesn't even try to rush the passer, so the sort of stuff that gets Minshew under duress, I don't think is relevant in this game. I'm probably going to lay off the spread, but I'm probably going to look towards team totals and things like that, and as well as the regular total, just because I think Jacksonville and Detroit are over teams to some degree this year. The only thing that can stop the over to me is Detroit handing the ball to Adrian Peterson 25 times.
Oh man,
when he's on the
PTSD
roster,
on that.
Teams he was on the Washington football team, and it's when he's on the roster, teams feel the need to give it to him.
It's crazy. They're like legacy.
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's fun to watch running still. It's it's not how I build my offense, but yeah. I actually pounced on this line yesterday. I took a flat 3.5 on the Jaguars here. My number is basically the same whether you include a prior or not. I think even coming off a bye, I make Detroit only a 1-point favorite. So Jacksonville at home. I was going to take anything over 3.5 or 3 over a field goal. So happy to get to 3.5.
All right, then Atlanta Falcons against Minnesota Vikings. It's another 3. The Vikings are favourites here. This one opened at 3.5, so it has had a minor drop. The total's also dropped a bit, 56.5 to 54.5. Eric, I'll go over to you first. Andy mentioned it earlier. Dan Quinn obviously out. I'm not sure how much that really matters, but I think it's probably here the interesting one's the total. Maybe seeing a result of the themes kind of been the totals are high. Are we seeing now people getting interested in the unders, or is it just this game specifically?
Yeah, maybe. I think Minnesota, the issue with them is that, they can put together a decent defensive game plan like they did against Seattle in the first half. They really, attacked the things that Seattle did well and cut them off for half the game. And then the issue then becomes, they're just simply not talented enough on the back end. Atlanta, as bad as Matt Ryan's looked over the past 2 games, they do have the potential with Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones to be a down the field team. I think there's always going to be value on the Falcons, over the next few weeks, just because everybody's so down on them from a narrative perspective. At a flat 3, I don't know. I mean, I still think there's some value on the Falcons here, but it's just a tough bus to run in front of, though, because Matt Ryan has looked atrocious over the past few weeks, and their defense, as bad as Minnesota's defense is talent-wise, I think that their defense is, even worse probably. So I don't think I can get in front of an under here, but as far as the side's concerned, I think Atlanta has to be it for right now.
Really? So I lean the other way. I haven't played it yet, but if it gets down to -3, it is 3.5 right now, right?
It's essentially it's a 3 -25. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, my initial number is Minnesota -6 here, which seemed it seemed a little high to me, and I looked, and Minnesota hasn't been that bad on offense this season actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised when I saw that. They've struggled on late downs in terms of play success, only 42.9%, but which didn't really seem well. But they have had 8.1 yards to go on average on third down, which is on the higher side, which seemed really odd to me, given that their play success on early downs is pretty high. And then I looked and I was like, okay, 8.3% sack rate. There may be some penalties in there, getting in some third and long situations. But it's more an indictment on how bad the Falcons have been so far. I mean, their defense has just been horrendous. They're second to last in the NFL in yards per play allowed. And hell, they've actually been kind of fortunate on third down play success stuff their defense has. Although Minnesota has also,
they didn't allow any.
Right. Well, you got to get to third down, right? So, I'm probably going to have a small play on Minnesota, but, I'm thinking, I'm hoping it gets down to a flat 3.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Vikings that's interesting is I agree with you that the late down stuff is noisy, but part of it is a function of their process, right? They run the football in early downs, which yield long yardage situations. And then their quarterback is sort of conditioned to be a quarterback who succeeds with play action, rolling out, turning his back to the defense, and, utilizing 2 really good wide receivers. If they get in third and long, it's sort of a fish out of water because it's a quarterback that can't use play action. They don't have 3 NFL caliber wide receivers, et cetera, et cetera. So not to say that that's going to be stopped by Atlanta, because Atlanta can't stop anything. But, the one matchup in this game that I think the Atlanta Falcons do have an advantage is in Grady Jarrett, who's a top 5 interior player in the league, against Drew Samia, who not only has the worst grade among guards in our database, he has the worst grade among NFL players in our database, and he's starting at right guard for the Vikings. So, I mean, that's the matchup that I think that they could be exploited. But at the same time, Atlanta is just a really tough team to back because, as you said, Rufus, they have not done anything well this year.
But you're right. They haven't been that bad against the run, against running backs running the ball. And that's something Minnesota likes to do. So,
yeah.
We don't have any updates on Dalvin Dewey. I think the MRI was good news, but they're still not saying he's in. But again, Madison, I don't know if it matters. Madison's a more than apt backup. I think he was averaging 5 yards a pop. And Minnesota's run defense hasn't been terrible this year. If you want to have some highlight, and some of that, I guess, could be, not narrative based, but script based. And some of the narratives around the offense are sometimes built around the scripts of the early games where they were getting their ass kicked. And, it's is the offense even good, or are these garbage points? Well, then you find out, no, Jefferson is grading out good. Jefferson's playing well. Thielen is still, a decent number 2. He needs a better number 1. I guess I'm not surprised that the offense looked good against Seattle. But yeah, the offensive line, Seattle's pass rush isn't scary, and it's like an upgrade going up against the Atlanta pass rush.
Yeah,
and that could be a bad combination if you're going to go backup running back and Kirk Cousins under pressure. I don't want to back either of these teams ever right now.
Yeah.
And then the total's probably a bit high. Like those are starting to get a little high, especially the way Minnesota can score. But if there's some red zone regression and they do decide to run, like these totals in the mid to high 50s.
Well, and the Falcons since the Shanahan days have been an absolute difficult team to back in noisy situations. Like Julio Jones turns into Todd Pinkston in the red zone. You know what I'm saying? And they just can't. Like they don't score very well when they get close, as we saw the other day when they had a chance to tie the game against Carolina. So, yeah, this is a tough game. I don't think Rufus's position on Minnesota is egregious though. They're of these two teams, Minnesota is a better NFL team currently.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if you want to be aligned with my position so far this season.
Yeah.
Right, I'll get with the next one's the big one. Highlight game of the week: Washington football team at the New York Giants. I'm not expecting a good game, but in terms of the betting, it's another flat 3 at Pinnacle. Giants -3 clearly says a lot about the Washington football team. Total's down at 43.5. Are the numbers good enough for anyone to get interested in this game?
I got a little bit of Washington +3.5. On Sunday night, I thought that represented some value. I think that the movement makes a lot of sense. There's not a ton of differences between these two teams, in my opinion. And home field being what it isn't this year, I feel like Washington has. I think for me, it's Washington or nothing.
Yeah, their defense probably overrated, but at the same time, better than Dallas. And if they're getting all their pieces healthy, it's like that was such an indictment of Dallas. And one of them was a defensive touchdown. So it's not, that they gave up that many points, but still the way that the Giants moved against that Dallas defense, that sketched me out. I was not a fan of that, as I had Dallas in multiple teasers. It took some Andy Dalton super luck to get that done. But the Alex Smith thing, that was the feel-good story until it wasn't.
I mean,
he was sacked a ton. He got sacked 6 times and threw for 37 yards. Like that's your comeback player of the year? I guess that was.
Was his adjusted net yards per attempt? Like what he had? How many pass attempts? Like 50? I don't know. I mean, he had like a net 6 yards gained on offense.
Yeah,
right?
17 pass attempts.
Yeah,
they had 6 drives that gained 1 yard or fewer. And I think 5 of them were negative yard drives. Like that, they had so many 3-and-outs. It was like if you take out what was it? They had a 73-yard touchdown drive. If you take that one out and go with all the other drives, their yards per play was under a yard. Mm-hmm. It was like 0.8. I mean, it was putrid, and it's not like they were playing a great defense. That's a middle of the road defense. So they are lost in the woods at quarterback, Washington, right now. But at the same time, I'm going to back the Giants.
I was going to say you
take the dog here. They're both horrible teams. Like I'll take the points.
I make the line spot on 3. I got nothing.
Yeah, if it was 3.5, I'd probably be interested. That was a good grab, but right now, flat 3. This is I'm not even going to say just watch this one instead. Don't watch it.
Yeah,
even if you didn't bet it.
Kyle Allen has some mobility and will probably keep both teams in the game, right? So that's that would be the difference between Alex Smith, who was obviously very very afraid to make a mistake, very afraid to get injured. I feel like the experiment with him is probably done. I'd be surprised if Haskins wasn't active this week as a backup quarterback.
All right, then we'll get on to Cleveland Browns at Pittsburgh Steelers. Looks like another one where the market's buying into the favorite. Pittsburgh initially -4, now -3.5. Totals 51. I don't really know where this would have opened without kind of all the weird stuff going on, but it deserves to be high. Is 51 the limit? Rufus, what are you thinking on this?
So actually, this is one of my favorite sides of the week. Yeah, I like the favorite here. I like Pittsburgh. I think Cleveland has been extremely fortunate this season. They're number 2. They've been the second. Well, they've gained second most points in turnover EPA at 23 points, and 13 of that's due to fumbles. And Pittsburgh's been positive in turnover differential, but they haven't been turnovers that have really helped them a bunch. Only +2 EPA from that. Cleveland was 11 of 18 on 3rd and 4th down against Indy, and actually was outplayed. They were outgained 5.3 yards per play to 5.9 yards per play. They've been very good running the ball, even without Chubb, obviously, because running backs don't matter, right? But they haven't had to play from behind except one game this season, really, and that was Baltimore, and they were held scoreless in the second half there. There are other games: Cincinnati, Washington, Dallas defenses. Pittsburgh is much more like Baltimore than any of those others. Pittsburgh has been the best defense against running backs running the ball this season, and Cleveland's the most run-heavy team in the league. And so, I make the line a 6.5. So,
anyone with Rufus or against Rufus?
Damn right. Cleveland. The box score was a little wonky. And I'm not just saying that because I had a terrible early number on Indianapolis and lost on the game. But, I mean, it was a little wonky. Indy did get their touchdown return, the kickoff return for a touchdown. But between the safety and the turnovers and some of the other stuff, I feel like – and throughout the season – and like Rufus brought up with some of the bad defenses they played, I like Cleveland. I think they're a good team. But, yeah, the box score was a little misleading at points in that game. I think it probably should have been a much closer game. I'm trying to find my notes on that one. And then, Mayfield ribs. I don't have an update on that, but this is not a game to go into with a rib injury if you're a quarterback coming up against the pass rush from Cleveland. Cleveland had 11 quarterback hits last week, 5 sacks, 8 tackles for losses, still couldn't get off the field on third down. Third down was a very weird down for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They had some nasty injuries, and honestly, some of the running in that game was weird. Everybody had like one long run for both sides, Philly and Pittsburgh. If you take out all those runs, like both teams really weren't running the ball that well. It was like the Claypool and Wentz third down magic show. That was a game that probably shouldn't have had as many points as it did. I think this one's probably a little lower scoring. I lean under, but at the same, favored under isn't my favorite place to be, but that's kind of where my numbers are making this one.
You don't have to parlay it every time.
Well, you should. I did with Baltimore.
I look at this like I think I like the under a little bit here at 51. I think that there are some internal things in Cleveland's favor, and here's one of them. Baker Mayfield this season, for what it's worth, passer rating when clean is 110. That's basically the same as Roethlisberger. Passer rating when under pressure is 31. Which is worse than just grounding the ball, right? He's made mistakes. Last week he had the 2 interceptions. He also had some other turnover-worthy plays. He has as many turnover-worthy plays as our, highest graded plays, which is troubling. But again, like when you look at, pass rating under pressure being that low, usually these things sort of regress at least to like 60 or something. So there might be some positivity there, but the Cleveland Browns' success has really overshadowed how poor Mayfield has been in some cases. So this is one where, it was 4.5 the other day. It's 3.5 now. I can see why, but I don't think I want to sort of, chase that at all.
All right, then we got Baltimore Ravens playing the Philadelphia Eagles next. It's -7.5 on the Ravens for this, and Pinnacle's on a 46.5 point total. I feel like, I don't know about you guys. I think everyone was kind of expecting big stuff from the Ravens this season. They're not really at the levels that they were. Do you think they're worthy of the 7.5 points against the Eagles? Andy, I'll go over to you.
Yeah, I'd be curious what Rufus's game grade was for this one. These are the games I have trouble with. If you want to look at, just as granular as looking at play success, maybe that's a completely better way to look at this. But these snoozy games like this, it does get harder to evaluate a team as the game script just kind of dictates a team to not play up to their potential in the second half. At the same time, like this was ugly. We played a little Cincinnati team total under. And we joked about like this might be a shutout. They might cover big and stay under. Like I've never nailed a game so good and didn't bet enough money on it and felt bad about it. But they kicked a field goal like at the end just to get on the board. It was kind of sad. Like the defense was very good for this team. Maybe a little underrated. I like Baltimore. I laid the 7 here just because it was going to move. Like, we weren't staying on that 7. I bet this on the opener. It's at 8. I guess I'm happy with that position. At the same time, some of the things I saw with Philly last week scared me a little. If he's going to go full Rodgers and just throw it to these no-name receivers and make whatever happen, that's not what I expected out of Wentz. I expect more turnover-worthy plays. I expect more sloppiness. I expected him to be worse last week. That covering
another 2 interceptions.
He did, but he kept making plays. He kept making plays against me on third down. It was kind of rough. So this is I make this like 8.5. So getting a flat 7 was an easy grab early on.
I think neither of these teams are doing the things that I was proud of them for doing when they had success. You know, Eagles in 2017 winning the Super Bowl, and obviously the Ravens the last 2 years. Like, the Ravens are being less aggressive on fourth down. I know they went for a 4th and 6 at midfield, but then they kicked a field goal on a 4th and 3. You know, the Eagles have this thing about them where they have good basic strategy on some fourth downs, but then they employ the run pass and pray that Wentz, you know, can make a play on third down. And that worked a ton in 2017, but the variance has really hit in recent years. So, like, if I were to get behind Philly here, it would almost entirely be because I don't think the Ravens are currently in good form with Lamar Jackson being hurt. You know, the receivers not being good enough, I think, to overcome him being a straight drop back passer. You know, I probably have to. This is one where I really want to watch it and see, because like I can't get a really good gauge on the Ravens right now, and I just don't think Philly's particularly good at all, and had kind of a pop up lucky performance against Pittsburgh.
So Andy, first off, you asked about the game grade here. I had the Ravens number 7 at plus 6.4 points. So if you go to the top, Miami 1, Las Vegas, Arizona, Houston, Rams, Carolina, then Baltimore. Then Indy, and then Philadelphia comes in at number 9. So, but they still, you know, they were Cincinnati was dead last, so at -12. So 18-point difference there between the two. This is a game. So I actually lean Philadelphia here. They weren't good their first 3 games. They literally second to last in game grade week 1, third to last week 2, and fourth to last or fifth to last, something like that, 28th week 3. But they've been above average the last 2 weeks. I mean, granted, you know, San Francisco was not particularly healthy anywhere, and but I thought they outplayed Pittsburgh in terms of, you know, at least in terms of my metrics. They you know, both teams, as one of you guys said, both teams converted a gazillion third downs.
21 of 29 combined.
Yeah, that's not sustainable. But Philadelphia had the edge in yards per play. Although actually, I was looking 30 yards was on that last play of the first half when down the middle, which basically, you know, those are the ones I need to go out of time and say, hey, let's just eliminate this. But this is more of a play, I think, or a lean, I should say, because I make the number 5.5 against the Ravens. The Ravens have been great on defense, but they have not been the same team on offense that they were last year. They're pretty middle of the pack, actually, in terms of where they, you know, let's see, yards per play. They're 12th, it looks like. So, you know, still just right above the Saints, but they've been extremely, and, you know, Andy mentioned that, you know, I mean, they've been playing from a positive game script a lot, where in games where, you know, you basically knew they were going to win that game. You know, they were going to beat Cincinnati. They were going to beat Washington. So, you know, maybe saving some bullets, but at the same time, they've also been the luckiest team in the NFL in terms of turnovers. They're, you know, even luckier than Cleveland. They're plus 26 points due to turnover EPA, and 24 of those 26 points are due to fumbles. So that's something that I think, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable saying that's been basically a bunch of good luck. So, you know, they're if you just look at, you know, their final scores of these games, it looks like, oh, Baltimore is still this dominant team, but I think it's a little bit of a mirage.
Yeah, defensive.
I think they're a great team, but I don't think they're, you know, good enough to be getting 7.5 points on the road against an Eagles team that probably is going to be getting Alshon Jeffrey back, Deshaun Jackson potentially, right?
Maybe.
I mean, skill, yeah.
They're going to get
even
better.
if they get him
Fulgham
back.
guy that they don't need.
Fulgham.
Yeah.
This guy. Just the way that we saw, I mean, not only Claypool, like obviously Claypool was amazing, but Ebron had some catches. The way that a 50-year-old quarterback abused some of these off-ball linebackers, I think the offense can get moving against something like that. They have some good receivers. I mean, you're right. We haven't seen the offense. Both of you said it. We haven't seen the offense do what we thought we'd get from last year. Maybe they are saving some bullets. They haven't played anyone yet. But again, Philly going against another tough defense, and maybe they don't get some crazy third down conversion luck. And honestly, they didn't run the ball well. That 74-yard long, that was a punt play. Like that was a third down and long draw that he ended up bouncing out. You take out that long run, they ran the ball 15 times for 20 yards outside of that play. Like they did not run the ball well. I don't think going against a Baltimore defense is going to make that any better. I don't know where I have those graded, but again, I don't think they're going to have that kind of luck. But both these teams are too lucky, which sucks. But I'm still fine laying my 7.
I mean, if you take out all my good bets, I lose most of my bets.
Eric, you mentioned about Lamar, they're kind of dropping back more, and obviously we're not seeing him run so much with it. And this is when I was saying about they're kind of not where they were last season. The game last week is one that they probably blast the other team out and win by God knows how many points, even more than the 23 or whatever it was. But how much of their kind of drop off in offense is down to Lamar maybe not running so much with it and having to throw the ball more?
Yeah, I mean, they're, as far as EPA per run play, I mean, they're slightly negative when a season ago they were one of the few positive teams. Even Philadelphia, who is not a good run team fundamentally, I don't think, has a higher EPA per run play than they do. And we know that quarterback designed runs are the most efficient run play. And that's just been taken away from them a little bit of late. And maybe some of it is them thinking or knowing that they can beat Cincinnati without their best. And similarly for the Washington football team, but the week prior, but it's uncanny. I mean, Lamar had fewer than 10 yards rushing the other day. That's just not something that they're used to having to deal with. And then in the passing game, like Marquise Brown's okay. I think he's probably a good number 2 receiver. And obviously Andrews is a great tight end, which should, to Andy's point, give the linebackers and safeties for the Eagles, who are atrocious, problems. But Lamar doesn't have that wide receiver that he can just kind of go to when things are on the line, and he's not terribly accurate either, to take advantage of it as well. So there are some edges that Baltimore's used to exploiting that they just simply can't exploit as much anymore.
All right, well, we'll move on to the Cincinnati Bengals against the Indianapolis Colts. Whoa, Indianapolis opened -9.5. Very briefly, they're down to -8, and we've got a 46-point total. Bit of a move on this one. Andy, I'll hand over to you. What are you making of it?
I not only bet the Cincinnati Bengals, but I bet the over early on. I got the 9.5. We agreed that was wrong. It was going to come down. Cross some. Whenever you can cross the key number of 9, you got to feel good about that. So. I guess it was going to move. I don't think we're going down to 7 on this or something, but the Darius Leonard injury mattered. You want to talk about somebody beating up people over the middle? Indy constantly. It was a rough game to have an Indy ticket. Again, the box score wasn't completely indicative of how that game went, but this defense, as high as it was rated, hadn't faced a ton of good offenses. I'm not saying Cincinnati's a good offense, but they are going against probably an easier pass rush here. God, I got to find the numbers on Burrow. Burrow got beat up. This was another one, too, where somebody asked me for a prop, and I said what a mismatch the offensive line for Cincy was, and you should bet the Ravens sacks over. And I don't know what it was set at, but I'm sure it hit. They don't set those at 7.5. he got just rocked left and right. I want to say he got 15 hits on him. I'm scrolling up to find my sense. It was a rough day for him. I still believe in him. Yeah, 7 sacks, 15 quarterback hits. Mixon didn't have a great game. This was weird. kind of a weird box score for them too. And I guess it speaks to how good Baltimore can play with a lead. They trailed the whole game. So you're in the game script of playing catch up the entire game. They still had like 200 yards, like 3 point something yards per play. They gave up the defensive touchdown. They lost Reader probably that's for the year, right? DJ Reader, that's a pretty nasty one. And I still backed him here. Just it is too many numbers. I think since he can move on this Indy defense, even if it is from coming from behind game script, I thought 9.5 was a bit much, and honestly, the total was a bit low for my liking too. I think they're both going to move the ball on each other. We saw Cincinnati give up some decent yardage to a broken offense from we just talked about Baltimore and how their offense isn't even really working that well. They're not doing anything right that they did from last year, and they still put up some points. Indy's better than that. Maybe Phil gives them a gift. Phil's been handing out gifts this year. He is not looking well. I'm not sure how he's grading out for you, Eric, but the eye test isn't working.
Actually, Phillip Rivers is interesting. He has a higher passer rating when pressured at 96 than when clean at 88, which is neither that's bad. That's awful. If your passer rating when you're not pressured is under 100 in today's NFL, you're not very good. The thing about Burrow, this would be my worry. I think the over has to be, I see some value on the over, but here would be my concern with betting it. Burrow this season on passes traveling 20 or more yards downfield is 1 for 24. AJ Green is not the Randy Moss type player that he was early in his career. Higgins and Boyd are good, but sort of in their own sort of underneath way. And John Ross has played as many snaps as I have over the past 3 weeks and is every bit as healthy. So I worry about this offense in the sense of being a quick strike offense. I think that they can grind it out against weaker defenses. Now Indianapolis has a pretty good front four, so this is why my colleague and the guy I host a podcast with really liked the Bengals on Sunday night. I pushed back just a little bit because of this, but it seems like the market does agree with him.
Yeah, I think since he has to know they need to do something up front, whether they're bringing more tight end help or running backs or chipping, they can't let their prized possession get hit 15 times a game. That has to be a focus of this coaching staff this week. Who's to say it will be?
Well, we talked about Burrow last week as well, and this idea of the perception of him and what he can do for the Bengals and how he was actually performing. And obviously the sacks is now dominating the talk. I mean, the guy's coming out himself and saying that he needs to get rid of the ball quicker. But is that not a warning sign for someone coming up to this league knowing that they have to kind of adapt like that?
I mean, everybody has to adapt when they come into the league, except I guess there's a few guys that there's a few guys that where the league adapts to them and then they have to readapt it all. If a guy's different, I mean, RG3 back in 2012, was it? Mm-hmm. Obviously Lamar Jackson. But I mean, rookies didn't used to just start off they didn't used to play like veterans their first year. I feel like it's happened more, but I mean, Burrow's a guy that got better. He took a tremendous leap before his, junior to senior year at LSU. I don't know before that, if he was the kind of guy that sort of, had to adapt. I mean, I know in baseball, there's certain guys that struggle at the beginning once they go up from single A to double A to triple A, and then they find they get that sort of familiarity with it. So, 9.2% sack rate's not going to get it done.
Yeah, I think last week, what did we discuss? That Burrow was impressive. I think, if you grade him on the curve of being a rookie, he's encouraging. But the hard part when trying to handicap games is that encouraging doesn't equal good sometimes, and Kyler Murray was sort of the same last year. It was, he wasn't falling flat on his face. He wasn't looking like a traditional rookie, to Rufus's point, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's worth backing against another NFL team. And I think that's somewhat where I lean with Burrow right now, is that in the NFL where they're not calling holding penalties, the way to kill offense in the NFL is to get sacked. And right now, whether it's his fault or his offensive line's fault or the scheme's fault, he's getting sacked more than anybody else. which gives me kind of a big concern, I guess.
And that's
I liked his comments on that, though. He did bring that. He acknowledged it's a quarterback stat almost without saying it, which was pleasant. So hopefully, not only the coaching staff, but maybe he's going to make some adjustments himself.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't have a play on this game, guys. I know you guys lead Cincinnati. If anything, I lean Indianapolis, believe it or not, despite the fact that since he's turned the ball over so much, or they've been a lot more unlucky with turnovers. But Indy's actually, what's interesting stat I found is that they actually, so they have the sixth worst third down play success rate, but they actually have the eighth shortest average third down distance. So they've been kind of it's like they have not been converting the third and shorts. And I mean, I think if you looked at it throughout his career, Phillip Rivers has been pretty bad in high leverage situations. I don't know if maybe I'm just biased towards like the fact that any time the Chargers had, a drive late in the fourth quarter, down or tied with the chance to come back, like it seemed like Rivers, it would be like a 4 and out. He wouldn't even threaten it, or there'd be the interception. So,
right, I'll move us on. And this game, no joking with this one. I think this one is really interesting. The Green Bay Packers at Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I kind of alluded to earlier, I feel like we're at the point where the traders kind of price a normal total and then think, I can chuck a few more on this and people are still going to take it. And that's probably what's happened here. 51.5 up to 54. A move on Green Bay already as well, -1 to -2.5. Whether that gets to the 3 or not, we'll have to wait and see. It looks really interesting in terms of the numbers. So who wants to take first crack at this? And is there any interest from you guys?
There was what a 5 point, and now they're not all important points, but like there's a 2.5. Tampa Bay was 2.5 on the look ahead on Sunday, right? All the way to 2.5 here, based upon neither team playing a game during that time. So it does look like there's some support for Green Bay, which I think is warranted. Tampa without Vita Vea, like Tampa's a good defense, like I think fundamentally, but they're losing, one of their more important players in Vita Vea. Green Bay getting healthy with Devontae Adams, who probably is the best route runner in the NFL, as well as, some of the, coming off of a bye. Now, this is kind of unfair in the fact that they're coming off a bye, but their opponent is coming off a 10 days rest. I think that the move towards Green Bay is supported here.
There's a couple spots in the schedule like this. I want to, and
isn't that weird?
Maybe there aren't anymore because they've moved so many damn games around already. And the schedule grid that Drew puts together is awful nice, and we find some of those where it does suck when your bye week advantage gets neutered a little by a team coming off Thursday, or even two teams coming off a bye playing, and they both get neutered. But yeah, at the same time, they both do get some rest. I have Tampa Bay's defense graded super highly. You go look at the DVOA numbers early. I think they're top 5, but again, losing Vita Vea is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then, Green Bay getting healthy. Like, I support the move. I wish I would have taken an early, money line on Green Bay when they were a dog here. I guess I didn't look too close at these. I was paying attention to everything else. Getting Devontae Adams and the other receivers completely healthy, as well as Rodgers has played with essentially some backups. What's the tight end's name? Tongan?
Yeah, Big Tom or whatever his name is. Big Tony.
Yeah.
I don't.
That was the biggest knock on this draft was, you didn't get Rodgers a weapon. He's not going to be good. And this is the downfall of this whole, and he's just playing well with everybody. It's been a scary offense to watch so far. And as good as the Tampa Bay defense has been, even if you adjust for opponent, I think Green Bay is definitely obviously going to move the ball on them. Lean Green Bay here, but not by much. Like, this number is probably pretty close.
Yeah, I find
the total's interesting. I mean, what do you got on that? Does it run your code?
Using my numbers last week's numbers, it would be, I would lean over there actually, which is unusual. So that means I probably really like the over. But this is interesting in the fact that how much Green Bay has overperformed their priors, at least where I had their priors. And I think where a lot of people had them going into the year as basically being about an 8-win team. And the question is how much of that is real and how much isn't. Like if I make a number without any priors, I make it Green Bay -2.5 here. With the priors, it's Tampa -0.5 point. So I mean, basically, I mean, I'm not going to play this game on this, play the side regardless there. But it's, I guess, yeah, the question is Rodgers going to keep this up? I mean, it is interesting because you have the same coaching staff as last year and basically the same personnel, yet they're playing at a completely different level. And, I feel like I've mentioned this, the whole narrative that the second year in an offense with, the whole comparisons to Kyle Shanahan and Matt Ryan and all that. And so I don't know how much to buy into that, but it's, I think it's interesting.
There's a trace amount of signal there. It's not a huge amount, but most of that is because the first year is actually pretty good, right? Just based on regression and the person that the coordinator is replacing is generally bad, right? So the first year you almost always get a bump, and then the second year it's a little. There is some bump, but it's trace. I mean, the thing with Rodgers is that we're seeing just fundamental differences in the way he's playing the game. I mean, his time to throw is down by almost something like a quarter of a second. When he hits his issues the past few years is just that he never trusted the process, and he was throwing off of wrong feet. He was not trusting his receivers. I mean, one thing you watched the Falcons game last Monday, it was he trusted the guys that he was throwing to. He might not know their name, but he's throwing it to them when the ball is supposed to be there. I mean, they're averaging 0.5 of an expected point per drop back. I mean, that's outrageous, and it's probably going to decline. But you look at his pass rating when clean is 141.1. It's 70 when pressured. So it's not like there's a lot of noise there. They're scheming extremely well, which is something I didn't expect given the kind of mixed results we got last year. And then LaFleur's 1 year in Tennessee wasn't particularly good. So this is a very pleasant surprise if you're a Packers fan, I think.
Well, LaFleur in Tennessee just loved giving Deion Lewis the ball for some reason.
Right.
Yeah, little guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. It was
priors
unbelievable.
Would have had this way down. Yeah, my priors on Green Bay weren't great based off the 1 year of LaFleur. And basically a big part of it was the overperformance last year. It's funny, the two biggest Pythag overperformers, I think, you want to go and take those and fade them. I think they're 9-0 this year.
Green Bay, who else?
Green Bay and Seattle overperformed by 3 games a pop.
And Seattle, this last
Seattle's
game was
8.
Seattle, this was their first time not covering the spread this year, right, against Minnesota. But they have 13 straight wins by 1 score or less, which is crazy.
So real quick, guys, are you adjusting your prior for Green? Are you basically saying, hey, I'm going to weight the in-season stuff more, or is there just I don't know what you guys
more than in a normal year
exactly?
Yeah, I mean, I really pre-COVID I did my regression to market values heavily, and then I've sort of as the seasons progressed, I waned them. I made my decay parameter faster, I guess, but I made my initial regression heavier towards the market than our internals, if that makes sense.
You're regressing to the market in your process of coming up with a number rather than
preseason I regress to the market, and I usually don't do that as heavily as I did this year because I figured there was a lot of stuff the market knew that I didn't know. But what I'm doing as the season goes on is I'm basically fading away past data more quickly than I have in previous years.
Okay.
So I guess it's more sensitive to what's happened, but the prior was more insensitive to what my thoughts were.
Interesting. So, yes, you are.
It's a lot to take in.
All right, then. So we'll get onto the New York Jets and Miami Dolphins. Dolphins -8, 47.5 point total. The Jets are looking woeful. Fitzpatrick doing the business for the Dolphins. Rufus.
Wait, didn't that game get moved or no? Did it get moved back? I'm confused.
What are we on?
This game was
week 11, right?
This game was supposed to be a different date, and now it's this date.
When did they change that? I literally was reading through. I was like, oh, I don't know why there's a line here because it was. I thought it was. I read that article where all the games got moved.
Yeah, I think.
Am I the deciding vote if this game is happening or not?
I literally don't see it on my odds screen here. So
it's not on some odd screens, but I guess it's happening.
Is it? Do we have
doing it? Yeah.
Ben, is this
Yeah, well, I mean, we have it. Pinnacle. I've got it.
Pinnacle's
down
booking it. We're betting.
Yeah.
We can bet it.
And what's the date of the game?
Rufus, you can take the Jets no matter when it is.
Well, you know I'm going to take the Jets, but
I've got it down as what are we? I'm on Sunday. Sunday 9:05. That's UK.
-8, 47.5.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I'm going to enter it on my spreadsheet right now.
I mean, you know what it's going to say. Your
Of course I
spreadsheet's
do.
going to turn bright
But
green.
what I can give you is what. So it's -8. Yeah. Actually, so I'm assuming Flacco is going to be a quarterback, and actually, I might not even be playing the Jets. Oh my God. I make the line 5.5. I mean, so I probably will be, but without priors, it would be 7.5 to the Chargers. I don't think the Chargers have been. I don't think they've been that great. I think I mean, they've obviously played some tough teams, but I just want to say, Tyrod Taylor 1-0 as a starter. Justin Herbert 0-4 as a starter. No, in all seriousness,
are they playing? They're playing the Chargers.
No, it's Jets Dolphins.
Oh wait,
Jets Dolphins.
Wait, I literally see here it says Jets Chargers Sunday 10:18. Like I literally Googled it to try to see.
I assure
I'm
you.
very confused now.
Yeah, this was the one that got moved because it was supposed to be Denver versus Miami this week.
Yep.
And then Denver got their game with New England pushed back to this week, and then the rearrangement was that the Jets, it's an Adam. So look, Rufus, you're going to be on the Jets because your Adam Gase revenge game variable is now 1. And so I do think that you're going to get some value on the Jets again.
To be honest, I have the number pretty similar because I have the Dolphins and Chargers rated right about the same.
The Dolphins are.
So it makes sense now. Okay, so the Chargers,
Flacco,
that other game got moved to week 11, and this, okay, yeah, it's been a tough week, guys.
Yeah, but I think the assumption is Darnold and Becton are both pretty iffy with shoulder injuries, and that ain't good because Joe Flacco's somehow a downgrade. I guess it's Joe Flacco, and it's the year 2020. It's a downgrade.
Who's the third string quarterback? That's who we need to play.
Oh man, it's that young. Is it a rookie? I'm trying to think of the guy's name now. He's got
someone who hopefully can move.
It doesn't matter. Crowder always still gets his somehow. Let's take a look at the Jets depth chart. I know this kid has gotten brought up a couple times. His name is James Morgan. I don't think that's going to be an upgrade either.
FIU. I can't remember which.
Yeah, he's one of the Florida schools there. I don't know a ton about him. I don't bet a lot of college, nor do I keep track of any of those teams anyway. Fitzpatrick's good. I don't know what happens when he switches off to being bad.
Yeah.
Normally, if anyone has any insight on that, I'd love to know it because he had to grade out really well.
He was amazing the other day.
They dropped
Miami's number 1 graded team.
Yeah, dropped 43 points on the road while only going 3 of 6 in the red zone. There were some short fields. There were some very short fields.
Yeah.
But there were some 70-yard drives. And the game script is you were up and you were up big and you were able to keep the lead. It seems like the game script would drop your yards per play as you went. They still almost had 7 yards per play. And it was a drubbing. That game was really something to watch. So this number's pretty close for me. And I try not to bet Fitzpatrick games. I say that every time, and I still put San Francisco in a teaser.
I mean, I wonder what Fitzpatrick's record is as a favorite versus an underdog in his career. Because I feel like it's got to be he's got to be almost better as an underdog. I feel like once he wins a starting job, I mean, that's when bad Fitzpatrick happens. He's basically just a really high variance. You don't know what you're going to get. So if you're a bad team, you want him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to start him against the Jets though.
And he don't slide. He's going head first, baby.
No.
Any thoughts on this game from you, Eric?
8's too many for the Dolphins to give to the Jets here. I don't know. I agree with these guys that there's probably value on the Jets. I don't know if I take it to the window. I mean, honestly, it's just really excruciating to watch that team play now.
Yeah. I mean, I agree watching it. And I mean, even more so for me, I think. But if I don't bet the Jets and they actually like cover, you know how bad I'm going to feel?
Yeah, right.
But I actually, so if when I ran my ratings without priors, you know what team is in last? This might surprise you.
The Giants.
The Jets.
Okay, yeah.
by like 2 full
Jets
points
Martingale from
Washington.
here on out. We're going to catch him one of these weeks.
Yeah.
So I make the line here with no prior. I make it Dolphins minus 10.4. With the prior, I make it Dolphins minus 5.9. So.
All right. Well, let's get on to a game that's definitely
money line. Just money line.
Money line or nothing.
The Rams against the San Francisco 49ers next. San Francisco 3.5 point underdogs. They've been pretty poor this season as well, I think, up until this point. Going to be interesting to see if there's any takes on this for them, I think. The total is on its way up, 49.5 up to 50.5, looking like it could go a bit higher as well. Eric, I'll go to you first on this one. And is it one where you're kind of thinking about Garoppolo? What is he practicing? Is it injury that he's actually benched for? I don't even know what's going on.
He would have played the whole game had he been any level of effective. I think they benched him because he was just piss poor. I actually like the Niners at 3.5. It looks like this has gone towards the Rams a little bit and now back towards the 49ers. Like this represents a 6.5 point move from the look ahead. And I just, I can get on board with it, in some cases, but I just think that's way too big of a move for a 1 week sample where you're looking at a Los Angeles Rams team that, while good at 4-1, all 4 of their wins are against the NFC East, which is bad. Not only total, but if you take the Rams games out, the NFC East is terrible. So I think it's a bit of an overreaction. Niners at home, Rams on their 4th road game in 5 weeks. I think there's value to be had on the Niners.
Yeah, the adjustment was too much. Like Jimmy G, while ineffective, I still think he might have been rushed back. I think it could have been a combination of he's still kind of injured and maybe he wasn't that good to begin with. Beathard wasn't great. Sherman doesn't look like he's returning. The secondary is in rough shape as it is. It's hard to bet it, but the adjustment across the 3 it's just too big. I'll say there's a couple of adjustments for backup quarterbacks that I think have been too big this week. They were rough. Like when your yardage is that low, you're in comeback mode the whole game, and your yards per player that low. They were what I have 2 for 10 on 3rd down. Like this was one of the worst performances I've watched most of the game. Like this game just never turned around for them, and Fitzy just kept putting it on them. I ended up betting some Miami team total over in the second half. Like Fitzy doesn't let up. Let's get this. It's like 7.5. You're gonna put 15 up again. They have no chance of winning this game. The Rams, like I said earlier, middle of the pack defense. Goff is not bad, but I'm still not sure he's good. He had an efficient day. It was another snoozy game for them, just quietly efficient, nice running game. The Rams are good, but yeah, their wins are against nobodies. They probably should have won against Buffalo. That was a nice game by them. And again, their scheduling has been rough. It's been back and forth, and like every other game is a road game. Granted, LA to San Francisco isn't a big travel spot, but at the same time, it's still yet another road game. 3.5 is probably the move.
I mean, you say that all their wins have been against the NFC East teams, which is true. But it's how they've won, and the fact that they have won all these road games, right? I mean, I have them just based on this season alone. They rate as the second best team. But that said, I also lean San Francisco here, and I'm using Beathard at quarterback here, just because I'm like, well, if you get Jimmy G, maybe he's not going to be better than Beathard normally. So using that, I make it a 2.5 point spread. So if anything, I lean San Fran.
All right, then I'll move us on to the last game that I've got on the card is the Arizona Cardinals at the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously a completely different game than if we were looking at it last week. I think as bad as the Cowboys have been, Dak's been pretty decent for them and no idea how long he'll be out for, but Arizona are now going into this at -2.5. I think that shows how integral he is. Bit of money for the over, surprise, 53.5 to 54. Big total, probably still going to appeal to bettors. Last one for the day. I'll go to Andy for this. What are you thinking?
I paid a little extra, but only because Drew bet it before me, and it moved like 3 cents because I shouldn't open my mouth apparently. So I took Dallas +3. This is kind of just run back what I just said. The adjustment was a bit big. Andy Dalton, go look at his priors. Go look at his previous numbers. Yes, it's not. He never was some threatening to have a Hall of Fame career, but he is a second best backup in the league behind my guy Jameis Winston. It was a really nice move, especially for what they paid to get this guy, and I think it might pay dividends because it sucks. Like, you're not going to get the Nick Foles year where like Andy Dalton wins this team a Super Bowl, but it's going to salvage the season, I guess, if that's what you want. I don't know. Maybe I'd be tanking for a pick. Maybe they should start Garrett Gilbert or whoever they picked up. But with these weapons, you got 3 good receivers, 2 good running backs. The only problem is the really, really decimated offensive line. Like, that would give me a little pause. That gives me a little hesitation. Just the injuries they've suffered to what was a very good offensive line. We'll see. But Dalton didn't look bad coming in cold. I thought he played with aplomb. And I think with some prep time, this number is too big. I took a 3. I'm more than happy. Put this in teasers. If it's at 2.5, I think that's a good look, even with a high total. And honestly, Cowboys money line. I'm not super sold on Arizona in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I don't think Arizona's good. So, and I think Murray is playing, I think, down to I think Kingsbury's getting a decent amount out of Murray, and it's able to beat some of the bad teams, but when it comes up against really anything resembling like a good offense or variance, as we saw in Carolina and Detroit respectively, like they can't win because he's just simply not efficient enough. And I think that's going to be the case here against Dallas. Now, Dallas's defense is like the ultimate slump buster. So like, maybe Arizona gets out there and actually, fulfills their potential offensively. But, Dalton's best years are when he had 3 good receivers, and he's got 3 good receivers with Dallas. So I can't have Arizona favored here on the road, given, how porous they've been defensively and how somewhat, under the radar inept they've been offensively.
Yeah, I also lean Dallas here. I make it a spread of just under 2 points. So I'm not, I didn't get that 3, unfortunately. But in regards to Cliff Kingsbury, I just want to say he had Baker Mayfield as a starting quarterback and Pat Mahomes as a starting quarterback, and he still got fired from Texas Tech. So, what makes you think he's going to succeed in the NFL long term? I'm long term bearish on him.
We've got some consensus there on the market. So one just interesting thing, I guess, in terms of the total, and you mentioned Andy Dalton, a very decent backup and 3 good receivers. Any doubts that maybe they run the ball a little bit more and what that means for the total, or do you see him throwing it just as much as Dak?
I don't know. I think I have some faith in McCarthy looking at that Arizona defense and saying, okay, there's some edges to exploit on the outside as well as down the middle of the field. I mean, they drafted Isaiah Simmons to be, a do-everything linebacker, and he's not good enough to play right now over 2 guys who, in Jordan Hicks and Devondre Campbell, who like can't cover anybody. So I think that Dallas is going to push their edges in this game, especially knowing that they have to win with a backup quarterback and get back to 500 in a division where that might be good enough to win.
They're going to get a division title
too. They should go with the backup quarterback, backup running back, Tony Pollard. I think that might help.
Yep.
T-Paul.
All right, we'll call it there. That's our games for week 6. Guys, great analysis as always. Thank you to the 3 of you for coming on and taking some time to share your insight. It is much appreciated. So yeah, really big thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hopefully I don't make people poorer like I have potentially already.
Just follow the
just myself.
Cheers to everyone for tuning in as well. Obviously, get over to pinnacle.com. You can check out all the odds that we've discussed, and remember to please gamble responsibly.